At the edge of a suburban golf course in Colorado, a red fox steps out of a drainage culvert just before dawn, pausing with one forepaw raised as sprinklers click on across the fairway. The animal does not rush the open grass, despite the presence of rabbits instead. It waits near the concrete lip, watching the arcs of water sweep back and forth. In this moment, the fox's behavior reflects a constrained open ground, exposes it to coyotes that patrol the same course at first light, and the rotating spray masks sound while distorting scent trails. Environmental pressure here is not scarcity of prey, but the risk of detection in a shared landscape, where a smaller predator must time movement between larger competitors. On a winter field in Hokkaido, a fox is recorded leaping high into powder snow, plunging headfirst and emerging with a vole clamped in its jaws. The dramatic pounce is often framed as precision hunting, yet the depth and density of snow dictate the tactic. When subnivean tunnels run just below the crust, the fox cannot pursue laterally, it must break through from above at a steep angle to collapse the tunnel. The behavior persists not because it is efficient in energy terms, each leap is costly, but because the snowpack eliminates other options, forcing a vertical strike as the only viable access to prey. Along a hedgerow in rural England, a fox trots in a straight line for several hundred meters, ignoring a cluster of field mice audible in the grass. Radio collar data from such routes show repeated use of narrow corridors between farms, even when prey density is higher in adjacent fields. The constraint is territorial overlap with neighboring foxes and badgers. Hedgerows provide scent marking continuity and visual cover, reducing the likelihood of confrontations that could result in injury. Movement along edges, therefore, is less about maximizing intake, and more about minimizing costly encounters. In a landfill outside Phoenix, a fox approaches a row of commercial dumpsters after midnight, circling twice before selecting one container to investigate. Camera traps reveal that the circling pattern corresponds to prevailing wind direction, and the presence of feral dogs that frequent the site. The fox forfeits immediate access to food scraps by delaying its approach, trading caloric gain for information about risk. The cost of a bite from a larger scavenger outweighs the benefit of unsecured waste, so the animal invests time in assessment rather than direct feeding. On a coastal marsh in New Jersey, a fox is observed caching surplus crabs above the high tide line, burying them in sandy hummocks marked by driftwood. The behavior requires repeated trips across open mudflats, where raptors hunt, and many caches are later pilfered by raccoons. Despite these losses, caching persists because tidal cycles create brief windows of abundance, followed by scarcity. Storing prey extends access beyond the narrow foraging period. The trade-off includes exposure during transport and the probability of theft, yet the alternative, relying solely on unpredictable daily catches, poses a greater risk of short-term starvation. In a boreal forest in Alberta, GPS tracks show a fox abandoning a partially consumed hare carcass after only a few minutes, retreating to dense spruce despite ample meat remaining. Snowshoe hares attract lynx and wolves, and the fox's smaller size makes prolonged feeding dangerous. By leaving early, the fox sacrifices calories to avoid detection by larger predators, drawn to the scent. This decision illustrates a cost structure, where incomplete consumption is preferable to injury or death, reinforcing a pattern of brief feeding bouts rather than prolonged meals. Across the tundra of northern Alaska, Arctic foxes follow polar bears at a distance, feeding on scraps from seal kills once the bear departs. Although this scavenging appears opportunistic, it involves significant risk. Bears occasionally return to carcasses, and other foxes compete for access. The strategy remains viable because hunting seals independently is impossible for foxes. Scavenging fills a niche created by a top predator's surplus. Alternative strategies, such as exclusive lemming hunting, fluctuate with rodent population cycles and cannot provide consistent winter sustenance. In agricultural regions of France, foxes have been documented preying on ground nesting birds during spring, despite higher rodent availability nearby. Nest predation involves exposure in open fields and defensive attacks from adult birds, yet the energy density of eggs during the breeding season makes them a temporary but valuable resource. The behavior does not replace rodent hunting. Rather, it supplements it when reproductive cycles create concentrated packages of protein and fat. The fox accepts the risk of mobbing by birds, because seasonal pulses of nutrients offset the hazard. Within an urban park in London, a vixen with enlarged teats is recorded shortening her nightly range, restricting movement to within a few hundred meters of a den beneath a garden shed. This contraction reduces foraging opportunities but limits the time. Cubs remain unattended and vulnerable to dogs or human disturbance. Lactation increases energetic demand, yet the mother balances this by targeting predictable food sources such as compost heaps, rather than ranging widely for live prey. The trade-off favors offspring survival over maximal caloric intake. In contrast, a juvenile fox dispersing from its natal territory in Bavaria travels over 10 kilometers in a single night, crossing highways and open farmland. The extended movement exposes it to vehicles and unfamiliar predators, but remaining near the natal range invites aggression from dominant adults. Dispersal is costly and dangerous, yet it is the only viable path to securing an unoccupied territory. Physical condition influences this decision. Well-fed juveniles disperse earlier, while underweight individuals linger longer at the margins, accepting subordinate access to resources. During a drought in central Spain, camera traps show foxes shifting activity to later hours, appearing near irrigation canals just before dawn. Reduced surface water forces prey species to congregate at artificial sources, altering the fox's temporal pattern. The change increases overlap with nocturnal competitors such as genets, but the concentration of prey near water offsets the competition. When rains return and prey disperse, fox activity broadens again, demonstrating that the behavior's viability depends on resource distribution, rather than fixed circadian preference. On a Scottish moor in late summer, a fox is observed abandoning a traditional den site after sheep grazing intensifies nearby. Increased human presence and livestock movement compress the safe buffer around the den, raising disturbance levels. Relocating the litter to a secondary den involves carrying cubs one by one across exposed ground, a process that attracts avian predators and consumes energy. Yet remaining in a disturbed site risks repeated flushing events that could separate the mother from her young. The decision reflects a trade-off between short-term transport risk and long-term den stability. In a vineyard in northern Italy, foxes have been seen consuming fallen grapes during harvest season, a behavior that provides quick carbohydrates but little protein. The fox forgoes hunting time while feeding on fruit, yet the readily available sugars support immediate energy needs. When rodent activity declines after field disturbance, this dietary flexibility is not optimal nutrition. It is a temporary adjustment to a landscape where agricultural cycles disrupt prey populations. Once harvest ends and rodents return, fruit consumption declines. Along a riverbank in South Korea, a fox is recorded using stepping stones to cross a shallow channel, avoiding a wider ford where otters are active. The narrower crossing requires balance and careful movement, increasing crossing time, but reduces the likelihood of confrontation with territorial otters. The choice of route demonstrates spatial risk assessment. The fox accepts a slower, more precarious path to avoid a competitor capable of inflicting injury. Such microscale decisions accumulate into broader movement patterns, shaped by the presence of other species. In Yellowstone's Lamar Valley, observers note foxes trailing wolf packs at a considerable distance, waiting until the wolves move on before investigating carcass remains. The delay reduces access to fresh meat, but lowers the probability of direct encounters. Wolves tolerate foxes only intermittently, and proximity can provoke lethal aggression. By arriving late, The fox secures smaller scraps rather than prime cuts, illustrating a consistent trade-off between resource quality and survival probability. On a Danish heathland, a fox is seen repeatedly testing the air, with short head lifts while approaching a rabbit. Warren, pausing whenever wind gusts shift direction. The stop-and-go advance prolongs the hunt and allows rabbits time to retreat underground. Yet moving downwind would broadcast the fox's scent and eliminate any chance of capture. The fox's incremental approach sacrifices speed for stealth, demonstrating that in open habitats, wind direction constrains movement more than prey density. In a suburban neighborhood in Toronto, foxes have been documented denning beneath backyard decks, tolerating human proximity that would normally trigger avoidance. The arrangement offers thermal stability and reduced predator presence, but exposes the foxes to pets and human disturbance. The behavior persists because urban areas exclude larger predators, such as coyotes in some districts, creating refuges where the risk profile differs from rural settings. The fox does not prefer humans. It exploits a gap in the predator hierarchy created by urbanization. On an Icelandic lava field, a fox is observed caching seabird eggs in crevices among basalt rocks, locations that are difficult to excavate later. The inaccessible caches reduce theft by gulls, but increase retrieval effort for the fox itself. Some eggs remain unrecovered, effectively wasted, yet the distribution of caches across multiple crevices spreads risk in an environment where a single cache is likely to be discovered. The strategy prioritizes security over retrieval efficiency, reflecting a landscape with high scavenger density. In a meadow in Vermont during peak vole years, foxes have been seen killing more prey than they immediately consume, leaving carcasses partially buried in shallow scrapes. The surplus killing appears excessive, but rodent population booms are. Short-lived storing prey converts a temporary glut into extended availability. The behavior incurs time costs and attracts other predators to the scent. Yet failing to store food would squander a fleeting resource pulse. When vole numbers crash, cached remains become critical. Across these varied settings from golf courses and tundra to vineyards and lava fields, the fox's behavior repeatedly emerges from constraint rather than optimization. Each observed decision reflects a balance among energy gain, injury risk, competition, and reproductive demands, shaped by immediate environmental pressures. Within ecosystems, these patterns influence prey populations, redistribute nutrients through caching and scavenging, and create opportunities for other species that exploit fox leftovers. The fox's role is not fixed, it shifts with season, landscape, and community structure, illustrating how viability under constraint, rather than ideal efficiency, sustains its presence across diverse habitats.